Welcome everyone to episode 8 of Unspoken podcast. I am Anna Paz, and today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to do a bit of a review or just reflect on some comments that I have on this film Sinners, written and directed by Ryan Coogler. I thought it was a great moment to speak about the film because it really touches on so many themes that I've already mentioned on the podcast. So I feel like it's a nice way to do a little recap of some things that I've spoken about. So, spoiler alert to anyone who has not seen the film. If you want to watch it before hearing this, hit that pause button. But if not, carry on as you are. Whilst you are here, I would love to ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, to follow Unspoken Podcast on Instagram, maybe give us a little rating on Spotify, subscribe on Substack, because this really helps the podcast to reach more people. And I thank you in advance. Now, Sinners, first of all, it was a beautifully, cinematically speaking, it was beautifully shot and produced. The sound, the soundscape was beautiful, color grading, the costume design, everything was on point. Nothing was out of place. And I would give it a solid 8 out of 10. And only because I don't like horror films, it was quite hard for me to go and watch the film. But because of the themes that are in the film and everyone was raving about it, I was like, I have to go and see it. But that was really the only reason why I would take two marks away, just because I don't really like all that gore and blood and stuff. But it was a good film, a really well-made film with a lot of depth, a lot of richness, and it spoke on so many levels of history, culture, and religion. And I don't want to go all over the place. I want to be quite concise, and it won't be such a deep dive because I would have to do a lot of research, and I will actually do that with some of the topics that I'm going to mention, some of the cultural aspects that this film touches on. I want to dive deep into that, and I will be doing my research. But for today, it will just be a few reflections, light reflections of what I saw. The first reflection that I have is to do with African spirituality. And the main reference to African spirituality in this film is hoodoo. And this is something that was practiced and developed by enslaved Africans in southern United States. I think the best way to describe hoodoo is that it is an amalgamation of different West African cultural religious traditions, in a way, spiritual traditions, but mainly I've seen here that it is deriving mostly from the Bakongo tradition. And so we mentioned the Bakongo before, the Bakongo cosmology, and how the Bakongo cosmology and the cosmogram is actually foundational to how we practice capoeira and the principles of capoeira. But I definitely think that there are also other influences that might come from other African traditional religions, some that have Islamic roots as well. Also the Eja, Ewe, Fon people of Benin, Togo, Ghana, Nigeria. Also Yoruba traditions, because at some point the woman, I think her name is Annie, she says Ashe at some point. So that for me is obviously referencing Yoruba language and culture. It's also said to be the case that hoodoo is also influenced by indigenous American practices. Whilst those who were enslaved were in the Americas, they had to learn how to engage with the plant medicine that was available to them, that was present on that land. So then there must be some integration also of indigenous American practices too. Some of the ways that African spirituality was present in this film for me was the offerings for ancestors. We have this scene where Smoke goes to visit Annie, and they have a relationship, like an intimate relationship. Before they greet each other, he kneels down on the ground where there is a small stone with handprint of a child and some milk, and I think there is something else that was in the picture, but I can't remember. He put some flowers down, and for me it was obviously very symbolic of someone who has passed and clearly a child. And we later learn and understand that it is their child that they had together that passed at some point. And he says something, like, "Daddy's here," or "Daddy came, I'm here." This is a very symbolic of offering for ancestors, to acknowledge our ancestors, to know that we still remember them, that their presence is still with us, essentially. There was also pouring of libations, which is something very connected to the hoodoo practice as well. When he comes inside the house, you see that she pours some alcohol or something, before she starts the work on his protective formula that he's been carrying. And that's the next thing that I wanted to talk about, is these protective amulets, patois, that I spoke about. And I mentioned that is something that could be deriving from the Mandinka people. So when they were enslaved, they would often have these protective amulets with Quranic scripts or formulas inside, these little pouches essentially that they would carry around their necks or somewhere on their body. But the Bakongo tradition as well, within that vicinity, they also had something similar like that, which is called mojo, which is actually what is referenced in hoodoo. So it's essentially the same thing: a bag, a protective amulet, something with some sort of protective formula that protects you on the journey that you're on. Another reference that connects to African spirituality, I would say, is the natural herbal practices that are very present, in particular when you see Annie and when she's in her home. Later on in the film, when they have to kill these vampires, it is her knowledge of herbal medicine that helps understand who is a vampire and who isn't. Historically, how we've depicted vampires, that they don't like garlic, that they don't like sunlight, and that they need, to be stabbed in the heart. So all of that is in the film, and these are like things that have obviously been associated with this concept of vampires as well, which is not something that is necessarily real, but is obviously being used here as a metaphor of something that is literally sucking and draining energy and killing the soul, and that there can be natural remedies for that, natural practices that push those kind of energies away or release them. And another beautiful moment is at the end when Annie, who is the one who is sort of like holding the space and is the one who has this knowledge of African spirituality and practices it, when she gets bitten by a vampire, she says to Smoke, "If that happens, you have to kill me, like immediately." So to allow her spirit to be connected to the ancestors, to go to the ancestors. And she said, "There is someone there waiting for me." So that is her referencing her child who is no longer in this physical realm, and she knows that she'll be reunited with her if her soul is released and not sort of bound to the earth. The next thing that I really want to talk about is the impact of colonization on spirituality, on African and indigenous spirituality. And I think this is depicted quite well in the film, and I think it's throughout the film the question that is brought to us: do we have a choice in our freedom, in our ways of expressing who we are? And I think that choice is really brilliantly depicted in the beginning. We see the glimpse of that when Sammy comes into the church and he's holding the guitar like really firmly, and his father, who is the pastor there, which is like a double entendre because it's played by Saul Williams, who is the son of a pastor, I believe, and is someone that kind of left the church and went about his own way in terms of his artistry. And essentially, we can't deny the impact that colonization had on the spirituality, and not only the spirituality in terms of like who we pray to, but then how we engage with our spirituality, right? And for me, music in this film is showing how powerful music is in connecting us to that spiritual aspect of life, of connecting to that greater force of the creator. So music is that vessel. And of course, in everything that we practice, and everything that I've spoken about in terms of capoeira, how music, the language, the things that we're saying, the stories, and the voice essentially is carrying so much information, so much knowledge, and so much force, I think, for creation. So for me, it's like almost like the base of life, of existing, that we have to be within that current of expressing ourselves within our freedom. And I think that is demonstrated by the musicality that Sammy holds, and that he has to either conform and subdue himself and place himself within the church and do church music or gospel music, kind of diminish his essence a little bit to make it more in line, to remove it really from that aspect of force, from light, from your skill, from that God ordained thing that has been given to you. And he doesn't want to let go of that. And that is shown again. That scene is essentially the last scene, and it shows that he can't let go of the guitar, even though that guitar and that sound was actually what brought about all the craziness that happened that night. Another beautiful thing that I saw in this film is this conversation about the past, the present, and the future. Oh my God, I love that scene when Sammy is singing in the club jukebox scene, and then you see all of these people moving that are coming from the past, the present, and the future. So we have the scene that is that present moment, him doing the blues. I saw some hip hop things coming up and some things, some electric guitar, and like it was just showing that there is so many reverberations of actions, movements, sound that is still present with us, that then manifest in a different way in the future. But that there is an ongoing loop and conversation. In order for that future to happen, this thing has to happen in the present. And this thing happens in the present because of what happened in the past. And I love that scene, that whole feeling that the room is full, not only by those who are present in that physical realm, but also those who have come before us and those who will come after us. I love that scene. And that scene has the voiceover of Annie. And she says, "There are legends of people with the gift of making music so true, it conjures spirits from the past and the future." It just beautifully ties this thing of remembering our ancestors, remembering our ancestrality, that it is not dead, that we are not blank slates, that we carry with us so much of what has come before us. And not only the pain, but also the wisdom, the beauty, the skill inside of us and around us, and that is manifesting something for the future. Just to go back to this impact of colonization and how Catholicism was enforced and Christianity was enforced, and what that essentially did in terms of dimming our light. I feel that there is so much of how that has been used to diminish one's traditions, to diminish one's culture, and fundamentally their light that is connected to their spirituality, the way that they pray. And I said that in the previous episode, we can't take that lightly. In the end, and this is what the film kept showing, when they kept saying, "Oh, we have money. Oh, we got some gold for that," or whatever it is demonstrating how we sell out our gifts and we reduce them to being something that can be exchanged essentially for money or for some aspect of power. That is ultimately the foundation of lies, is the foundation of something that is not rooted in its essence of the power and force that it has come from. So then it will never last. That is also something that is depicted in the film. Like, that club had a grand opening and a grand closing on the same day because it was built on lies in terms of the money that was paid to them, in terms of the actual space that was, if I'm not mistaken, it was a former Ku Klux Klan slaughterhouse or something like that. There's some things that you can't build on top of the essence of that thing is rooted in something that is really dark. And in order for us to be in our God consciousness, be in our light, and sometimes it might mean going through some darkness, which is what I think Sammy went through. But when you see that shot, like in the future, when he's speaking to Stack and he's like, up until the sun going down or whatever, he said something like that. He said that was the best day of his life. That was the best day of his life, like when he almost lost his life. But that's just showing you that we have choices. We have choices, and that ultimately there is no price. Nothing anyone can pay you for your freedom. There is no exchanging. Freedom is what has been given to you. That's how I saw it. It's like his freedom was music, and he continued on that path, and then he became relevant and in shaping the world around him because of that. And he was protected from the other side. He asked Stack why he hasn't come for him, and Stack said that Smoke made him promise to let you do your thing, to let you do your music. So essentially another aspect of like that there's people beyond these realms that are protecting you, that have protective prayers, making sure that you are on your path, that you are doing what it is that you have been gifted to do. So I think for me, it really was a film about belief, questioning our belief systems. Ultimately, also, what is the price for your freedom? And when I think about African culture, how, because of survival, we have given up, our gifts to be used in a way that is less connected to the essence and life force that it came from in order to survive in this world, to have money, to whatever it may be. But what is the price for that? And I think we are seeing that manifest more and more, when you've seen that in every space that our culture has been robbed of its essence, it has negatively impacted our community. And I say this with no judgment. I just say this as someone who is living it, seeing it, engaging with it as well, and sometimes even complicit in it. But we are at a crossroads, I would say, and I think that that's why this film was so timely, actually, to come out at this point where we are at a crossroads. And I think the blue and the red in the film was, at least for me, I don't know if that was the intent, symbolic to like the Matrix, the red and the blue pill, but it was sort of like the meanings were turned on its head of making a choice. Do you want to pimp out your gifts? Do you want to reduce your wisdom, the knowledge that is embedded deep within you? Do you want to reduce that in order to conform and contort yourself into a system that only wants to exploit you? And what will you be left with? Maybe it is comfort, maybe it is to be safe to some degree, but there's a cost to that. Today, we are also at a crossroads, and I say this to myself also. It's a moment for us to make a decision about how we want to impact our futures and those who come after us, that we have to understand that we are creating our futures. There is nothing outside of us that can dictate what it is that we choose for ourselves. And that was also beautifully shown in the film, that the vampires needed permission to come in the house. Only if you give them permission. Only if you decide. So we have agency, we have power to decide. And I think this is why I really enjoy the film. This idea of like coming back to ourselves, coming back to our ancestral knowledges, coming back and recentering ourselves in our agency, in our power to make better decisions. Yeah, today was more of just a reflection of what I felt, how it moved me, and also in ways that it made me think about this aspect of choices. And in this last year, I've had some crossroads also, some moments of really making decisions about wherever I'm willing to compromise some aspects of my abilities, skills, gifts. Am I willing to compromise that? And I really am not. And I realize that I'm more aligned with my light and my essence when I walk in that way. And I can only hope that that is only going to be beneficial for those who come after me. So that's what I think this film is about. It's really about us understanding the agency that we have, questioning our belief systems, understanding our ancestrality, to remind us in those moments where we have to make decisions about where it is that we stand. So that is all that I have for you today. Today was me just really expressing what I felt watching a piece of art, and this what art is so powerful. It can make us have conversations, make us think twice, and remind us. Art is also here to remind us of things that we might forget in our day-to-day, monotonous, mundane things that we do. It's a reminder sometimes of life, that force, that energy, that light. It reminds us of that thing that is present in us too. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please share some comments if you've seen the film. I would love to hear about your reflections. If there's something that I've reflected on and that you even disagree on, perhaps, please let's have a conversation about it. Why not? Thank you for listening. I'll see you on the next one.